Well, they're all freaking out right now on the media, especially at MSNBC, because Trump is keeping his focus on the people who have broken the law in Washington, D.C. I'm not talking about the murderers, the carjackers, armed robbers. Oh, yeah, he's looking at them too. I'm talking about the corrupt politicians. I'm talking about the people in the deep state, part of the permanent political class who have corruptly taken over this government despite your vote, despite the will of the American people. And now they're out of their heads about it. Adam Schiff got dragged in front of the cameras at Meet the Press, and you can smell the fear emanating from this guy's body odor. I'm going to show you those clips in a second and eviscerate Kristen Welker, the host of Meet the Press, for, well, basically tossing softball after softball. That's coming up in a second. First, though, take a look at how MSNBC addressed this. First, you see this tweet from Eric Erickson, conservative commentator, radio talk show host. Good guy, but definitely a critic at times of Donald Trump and his policies. Let me just say something. Eric Erickson would never be invited to the table at Morning Joe unless he tweets something or posts something that is critical of Donald Trump. That's how this game is played. And so then the folks at Morning Joe started inventing brand new imaginary MAGA Republicans who were really mad at Trump for going after John Bolton. Does that sound right to you? Yeah, let's watch this segment and then we'll discuss.
I talk to people in MAGA world, and these are not like Paul Ryan Republicans. These are Donald Trump Republicans who said that raid, which unfolded live on your air on Friday, made them uncomfortable, that this seemed like, even for President Trump, this seemed like new territory. Now, important to note that we don't yet know the reason for that search. We have not seen the documents that were behind it. Axios' Mark Caputo has reporting that part of what they are looking for here had to do with the sharing of classified information. And so there may be more to this than we know. There's reporting out there that it goes beyond the book. So we just don't know, but I can.
All right. So let me just break down what we just heard here from this dude at Mike Allen, Axios co-founder, and you can trust him, right? So Mike Allen says that he's been talking to MAGA types, and I'm talking real, true red MAGA types, like red meat. They'll take a bullet for Trump if they have to, MAGA types. And they're really, really concerned that Trump okayed a raid by the FBI on John Bolton's home. This is beyond the pale for them. Name one, Mike. Mike, give us one name. Give us one name. Oh, you can't name them. We're just going to have to trust you on this. Does anyone believe this? Oh, and then, by the way, he then had to caveat everything that he just said. I know some MAGA types are really angry that Trump has done this. That being said, we have to say that we don't know that Trump actually ordered this. In fact, Trump has said that he didn't know anything about this. We also have to say that we have no idea why the FBI was there, what they were looking for, and whether this has anything to do with what John Bolton has done, or maybe it's a sharing of classified information, and John Bolton was the recipient of it, but he didn't do anything of that. It's like he's got all these caveats, but it all has to start with, I've talked to MAGA people, and they're really angry about what we don't know anything about. But is this news? Is this supposed to be news? We don't know what's going on, but I've talked to unnamed MAGA people who are really mad about it. There you go. Once again, there's a divide in MAGA world. Trump's losing his base, you guys. It's over this time. We really mean it. We swear. I just interviewed this morning on my radio show a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia who is a big Trump supporter and not a huge fan of John Bolton. And I said, what do you think's going on here? And he said, we don't know. We don't know when we should stop speculating and we should stop. He said, you know what? There could have been a warrant to search John Bolton's home and his office for evidence related to a crime somebody else committed. And this has nothing to do with anything John Bolton had done. That happens a lot. So maybe we should just downshift a little bit and not go off on wild speculations, right? We really shouldn't do that. Which means, of course, at Morning Joe, we're going to continue to wildly speculate.
This raid on Ambassador Bolton's home is deeply dangerous, and it comes much like the threats with Chris Christie. It comes after President Trump was very critical of Bolton just last week. Bolton was out there criticizing the Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin. Trump hit back on Truth Social repeatedly, and whether an order was given from the White House or not, it's out there. He's not happy with Bolton. It's easy for federal officials to take their cues from that. And then on Friday, we see this raid.
Well, that's what the Wall Street Journal editorial page said, Meek. It said they knew what the president wanted, and so they did it.
It certainly matches the pattern of his promises during the campaign.
Oh, can we watch this together again? I do love these two so much. And it really warms my heart when they're not pretending like they're in Washington, D.C. By sitting in their studio next to their garage in Tampa, Florida, like they do most of the time with a pretend screen behind them. No, this time they're pretending to be in Washington, D.C. while sitting in a studio in New York. They're precious, aren't they, Joe and Mika? But let's just break down what we just heard. The language that they use on these segments are always so remarkable. If you actually listen to the words they use, they reveal to you how stupid and duplicitous they are. And there's nothing better in the media for a brand like MS Now to maintain than the combination of stupid and deceptive. Not only are we dumb, but we also lie. MS Now.
This raid on Ambassador Bolton's home is deeply dangerous, and it comes much like the threats with Chris Christie. It comes after President Trump was very critical of Bolton just last week.
Now, do you remember when Joe Biden's FBI raided Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago? Did they say that this was dangerous at any point? No, it was just, it was righteous. It was about time is what it was. And by the way, when the FBI went and raided Mar-a-Lago, the home of a former president, not a former national security advisor, not a former ambassador to the United Nations, no, a former president's home was raided by the FBI. And I'm pretty sure it came right on the heels of Joe Biden saying something really negative and critical of Donald Trump. In fact, it came not too long after Joe Biden actually declared MAGA Republicans a very threat to this democracy. But I don't remember that analysis at the Morning Joe table. Do you? Again, it's almost like they lie. Almost.
Bolton was out there criticizing the Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin. Trump hit back on Truth Social repeatedly. And whether an order was given from the White House or not, it's out there. He's not happy with Bolton. It's easy for federal officials to take their cues from that. And then on Friday, we see this raid.
There you go. So that's news. This is what is news on this network now. Whether he gave the order or not, it's out there. He put his cues out there, and the FBI knew exactly what he wanted them to do. Well, guys, it's over. I think you should expect impeachment proceedings. Maybe even tar and feathering. Maybe if they really get angry, they might actually try to arrest Donald Trump for crimes from 30 years ago and put him on trial and I already did that. They got nothing. This is hilarious. By the way, at no point in any of these conversations about what happened at John Bolton's home does anybody on MSNBC lean forward and say, you know, guys, for a judge to issue a search warrant to the FBI on somebody's home, the FBI had to produce some evidence. Now, during the Russian collusion hoax, the FBI presented false evidence. They've already admitted that. They admitted that what they presented to the FISA court was wrong. It's not even deniable at this point. So either the FBI presented false evidence, just like they did against Donald Trump in the Russian collusion hoax, or hear me out, maybe there's enough evidence to support a search of John Bolton's home and office. Not one person on MSNBC all weekend long said that plainly truthful, factual, and sane, rational statement that I just made. Meanwhile, over on the mothership, NBC News, we had Vice President JD Vance getting grilled by Kristen Welker. And, well, he addressed the John Bolton question like a sane, sober, logical, measured, conservative human being.
What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
What's at the root of this? Is this about classified documents?
Well, again, I'll let the FBI speak to that. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime here, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be. But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? If so, then he deserves to be prosecuted.
As you know, Ambassador Bolton is a frequent critic
Sure.
of President Trump's. He's also on Kash Patel's enemies list. The administration has already revoked his security clearance, Secret Service protection. Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump?
No, not at all. And in fact, if we were trying to do that, we would just throw out prosecutions willy-nilly like the Biden administration DOJ did, prosecutions that later got thrown out in court. If we bring a case, and of course, we haven't done that yet. The Department of Justice has not done that yet. We are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law. We're going to be careful about that. We're going to be deliberate about that because we don't think that we should throw people, even if they disagree with us politically, maybe especially if they disagree with us politically. You shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison. You should let the law drive these determinations, and that's what we're doing.
But you know, a lot of people have already looked at this and said, this looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution?
Well, who has said it looks a lot like retribution, Kristen? A lot of people who tried to throw Donald Trump in prison for completely fake charges that were later thrown out by multiple different courts. I suspect that if the media and the American people let this case actually unfold, if they let the investigation unfold as it's currently doing, they're going to find out that what we're doing is being very deliberate and being very driven by the national interest and by the law here. And that's as it should be.
Good for JD Vance. Good for Vice President Vance. Frequent viewers of this program will see exactly what JD Vance did there, and the fact that he picked up on something that we point out all the time when people like Kristen Welker are asking the questions. Listen to the question again.
But you know, a lot of people have already looked at this and said, this looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution?
We get this question a lot, don't we? It's always framed within, you know, there are a lot of people out there who are saying, or some people would say, or critics might suggest, da 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 da. And what do we always do? We always pause it right there, just like we do, and say, what do you mean a lot of people? Who are a lot of people? You mean you and your buddies in the production offices there at NBC News, your executives, maybe your co-producers on the show, or is it just your buddies over at the White House Correspondents Association? When you say a lot of people, are there the people in your fantasy football league? Is this a discussion as you're figuring out who you're going to draft first, wide receivers or running backs? It's such a stupid, asinine trick that these reporters do, and he was all over it. I think he watches the show. Do you think he watches the show? I think he might.
Well, who has said it looks a lot like retribution?
Who says that, Kristen? Frankly, I don't give a damn, Margaret. All right, so that's the exchange with this sober, intelligent, professional, accomplished man, one heartbeat away from the presidency, Vice President JD Vance. To counter his message, his facts, his logic, his reasoning, NBC News decided to bring up this guy, Adam Schiff. Because when Adam Schiff was on Meet the Press and CNN and ABC's This Week and CNN's Face the Nation and any other cable network or camera that got turned on at any moment within a 50-yard radius of this dude, he'd be jumping in front of the camera saying, I know for a fact that Donald Trump is guilty of Russian collusion and high crimes and misdemeanors. I've seen the evidence. I can't tell you the evidence because I'm the ranking member or the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. It's all top secrets. It's all very classified, but I've seen it, and I'm telling you he's guilty. And of course, there wasn't any evidence. He was lying. He lied and lied and lied and lied and lied about Russian collusion. So, of course, NBC News invites him on to talk about this story because he's a liar. They didn't have him on because he's a senator. They didn't have him on because he's a former chairman of the Intelligence Committee. They didn't have him on to give his expert partisan Democrat opinion about John Bolton and Donald Trump. They had him on because they wanted him to lie. Why else would you have him on? He's a liar. That's why you invite liars onto your show. Hey, excuse me, could you get Senator Liar over here? We need some lies. Yes, sir. He'll be right over. Send the car. So here's how the question and answer went with John Bolton.
I search a former national security advisor and ambassador, John Bolton's home and office. I did have the opportunity to ask the vice president about this. He rejects the idea that this is political retribution. Do you believe that people need to let this investigation play out and not get ahead of it at this point?
I think this is clearly retribution. I mean, the idea that what they just picked John Bolton, a prominent critic of the president, at random. What the president is trying to do here is very systemic and systematic, and that is anyone who stands up to the president, anyone who criticizes the president, anyone who says anything adverse to the president's interests gets the full weight of the federal government brought down on them. So if you're John Bolton, you get your home seized. If you're on the Federal Reserve and you won't lower interest rates, you get threatened with prosecution or with firing. If you're a general, like the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and you issue a report, or the agency does, casting doubt on the success of U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, you get fired. If you are the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and you give a jobs report that the president doesn't like, you get fired. They're essentially going after any critic, any opposition, in an effort to intimidate them. That's what this is about. It's not about Bolton per se. It's about anyone else that, like Bolton, might stand up to the president.
Wow, he's just body slamming and then setting on fire with gasoline and matches and a blowtorch straw men left and right. This is not just your typical straw man moment, and that's saying something for Adam Schiff or for Democrats. Let's break it down real fast.
I think this is clearly retribution. I mean, the idea that what they just picked John Bolton, a prominent critic of the president, at random.
No one is suggesting that they picked John Bolton at random. JD Vance didn't say that they picked John Bolton at random. The FBI certainly didn't. No, they didn't just pick him at random. Clearly, there's reason to get this search warrant. As I just mentioned, a judge had to authorize it by seeing new evidence from the FBI that there was a reason to go in and search his premises. So no one was picked at random. But thanks for propping up that straw man. What else you got?
What the president is trying to do here is very systemic.
Adam Schiff knows what Donald Trump is trying to do. Who believes that? Who believes that Adam Schiff has a good handle on what Donald Trump is trying to do on any given moment in any given day? Because he's been so right about Donald Trump up until now. Can we play the clips of him saying that Donald Trump would never win the presidency, or that he would be spending the rest of his life in jail, behind bars, or all those other things? Because he's always so right about Donald Trump.
And systematic, and that is anyone who stands up to the president, anyone who criticizes the president, anyone who says anything adverse to the president's interests gets the full weight of the federal government brought down on them.
You know, I might start cheating on my taxes, or maybe going on some sort of international crime spree. Yet at the same time, change the content of this program to be hypercritical of Donald Trump. I feel like if you are critical of Donald Trump and you break federal law and you get into trouble for breaking that federal law, you have a built-in defense. Guys like this are going to come out and defend you. Joe Scarborough will defend you. You can get whoever you want. It doesn't matter. It's like, hey, it looks like Larry O'Connor is guilty of tax fraud and he robbed a bank and he just hijacked an airplane. Yeah, but we know what's really going on here. Haven't you seen Larry's show recently? He's been really critical of Donald Trump. So this is all bull, right? I mean, he's probably pretty innocent. What is this equivocation where if you are, listen to the litany that he puts out here. If you're critical of Donald Trump, you should be free of any circumstances if you break the law or if you're incompetent in your job. That's the Adam Schiff standard now.
So if you're John Bolton, you get your home seized. If you're
John Bolton, you get your home seized. Now, if you're supportive of Donald Trump and you're suspected of having classified information or sharing classified information or making money from a foreign government without registering as a foreign lobbyist and violating the FARA regulations, well, then you should be prosecuted if you're supportive of Donald Trump. But if you do all of those things or you're suspected of doing all those things and you're a critic like John Bolton, well, it's just lawfare.
The Federal Reserve and you won't lower interest rates, you get threatened with prosecution or with firing.
Yeah. So again, I don't believe that the chair of the Fed has been threatened with prosecution. He has been threatened with firing, but not because of the interest rate. It's because he's well over budget for a $2 billion or $3 billion renovation of the federal building. There is a member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve who is being investigated for mortgage fraud. More on that in a minute, Adam Schiff. So again, you break the law. If you're on the wrong side of Donald Trump, that's your defense. You can go in front of a jury in D.C. and say, listen, Trump doesn't like me. Not guilty. That's the world we're living in here.
If you're a general, like the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and you issue a report, or the agency does, casting doubt on the success of U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities.
He didn't get fired because he issued the report. He's such a liar. How do we know about this report? This classified top secret report from the Defense Intelligence Agency that preliminary suggested that there wasn't much damage done to the Iran nuclear program. How do we know about it? Because it was leaked. It was leaked to CNN and the New York Times. He didn't get fired because he issued the report, you lying jackass. He got fired because either he leaked it or somebody on his team leaked it that he's responsible for. That's called accountability for breaking the law. That was an illegal leak, but you know about illegal leaks, don't you, Adam Schiff? All right, let's move on to the next question, because Kristen Welker now gets really tough on him because, as you know, he's in trouble. He's being investigated for mortgage fraud. Take a listen to this question and answer, and I'm going to show you why Kristen Welker commits absolute journalistic malpractice the way she poses this question. Listen to the question.
Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. Now, the government mortgage company, Fannie Mae, says you're, quote, engaged in a sustained pattern of possible occupancy misrepresentation on several loans. Are these allegations true? How do you respond to them?
They're patently false. And the president knows it, and the housing agency, president's person, Pulte, knows it.
All right. You don't even need to hear his answer because it doesn't matter. Of course, he's going to deny it, but he was given such a great question to be able to tee off of. You just heard how she set it up. Listen to the question itself for a minute.
Engaged in a sustained pattern of possible occupancy misrepresentation on several loans. Are these allegations true? How do you respond to them?
Are these allegations true? Well, what the do you think he's going to say? Are these allegations true? Yes, Kristen, my God, please stop. I can't stand this withering pressure and maintain sustained. Oh, that's intense questioning that you're putting me through. What is this, the fourth degree? What are we in Gitmo right now? Are you going to waterboard me? Okay, fine, I confess. Yes, it's true. Are you kidding me? Are these allegations true? That's not how you ask a question. She's a professional journalist. She makes millions of dollars on Meet the Press. She's been tapped to be the moderator at presidential and vice presidential debates in the past. And that's how she asked the question? Okay, I'm no professional. I didn't get a journalism degree. I don't make millions of dollars like Kristen Welker. I don't make millions of dollars, period. Could I put forth my Kristen, will you listen to me? I've got Adam Schiff in front of me, and I know the facts of the matter. Let me ask the question. Here's how you ask the question. And Adam Schiff, or your people, if you're watching this, because somebody might ask the question someday. Someday they may ask this question. So here, we're going to give you a hint. You can get ready with your answer. I'd love to see what you come up with. Senator Schiff, as you know, it's literally impossible to have two primary residences. It's just impossible. And yet you claimed under penalty of perjury on your mortgage application for your Maryland home that was your primary residence. And at the same time, you claimed under penalty of perjury that your California townhouse was also your primary home. So can you please explain to me how that isn't fraud? That's how you ask the question, Kristen Welker. But no, they're much more upset about Donald Trump and his retribution that is completely based on nothing. There's no evidence to suggest that there's any retribution anywhere. They're very upset for John Bolton. They're very upset for Adam Schiff. They're doing whatever they can to protect them under the guise of journalism and asking questions. And you deserve better, frankly. We'll continue to watch these stories, the investigation into John Bolton, the investigation into Adam Schiff and anyone else, and whether they're supportive of Donald Trump or not, we'll give you the details of it as they unfold. And we're not going to be in the tank for anyone. Certainly not a sleazebag like Adam Schiff.